Hey y'all, my name is Tamara Andress. I am your Fit and Faith podcast host, and I am pumped to be here. Just me, no words, no scripts, no intros, no outros. I love authenticity. I hope to breed vulnerability, and I usually do this alongside another dreamer, mover, shaker, entrepreneur, passionista is what I love to call them. If you're a dude, then a dude. But I am loving just coming together in community with other people to share their high and low stories, to share their journeys to come back, because I believe ultimately that's where God would have us. He would have us on the mountaintop. And even though we learn a ton in the pit and in the valley, God would want us right now, especially in this season of life, in this time of our culture, to shine. And so here I am. I want to teach you how to shine. I want to be alongside you when you get your glow. I want to catapult you into your calling, whatever that is. So this isn't a fitness podcast. This is not a religious banter, though we preach Jesus all day long. And this is not just about nutrition or health or wealth, though I like some green, and I know you do too. It's not okay for us to not be okay with talking about all of these things in unison. You guys, we don't just need a mental health podcast. We don't just need a fitness podcast. We don't just need a religious, spiritual podcast. It needs to blend. This is what Fit and Faith is all about. It's all about creating alignment, connectivity. It's about pursuing your wholeness and claiming it over your life and over the lives of the loved ones that you have around you in your community. So thank you for tuning in. I would love to get to know you more. You can like, review, subscribe, whatever it is. Send me an email, DM me. It's me. I have an amazing team alongside me, but you guys are getting me for now. So enjoy. I'm so pumped to have a coffee conversation with you, is what I'd love to call them. Don't have my coffee right now, but I have it in my system, as you can see. All the love. Let's do this together and keep going for your dreams, y'all. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
I know. I'm glad you're here too.
Oh, me too. Me too. It's been like so crazy getting to this moment, and I feel like it happens every week. And I love that before we even got started and before I'm even introducing you, your question was, what do you do to prepare for this? I'm like, I can't really prepare for a natural conversation.
Right.
I know it's time blocked in my schedule, and I know it's with you. And so I just kind of like somberly think about it when I have the time and the space when that happens. Usually it's in the shower, bizarrely, or driving.
Magic happens in the shower.
It does. It really does. Or if you're Morgan Hart, it happens when you're blow drying your hair. So either way.
Or driving.
Yeah, driving's good.
Yeah.
But I don't have toddlers. I have kids, but I had that conversation the other day. It broke my heart. They're like, you don't have toddlers? Oh my, who are you? Don't say that about my babies. 4 and 5 does not mean they're toddler anymore.
It still counts.
Okay. We're here. We're right here. And we're so excited to be here. My name is Tamara Andress. For those that don't know, this is my beautiful friend, Jeannie Landis. Chamberlin Landis. Do you use your middle name, your last name, middle name?
Yeah.
Jeannie
middle
Chamberlin
initial. Yeah.
Landis. And we have become friends over pretty much the last year and a half, but she's been in my life, and I've heard her name chattered from my husband for about 3 years, which is really weird. You have to meet Jeannie. She's so amazing. She can like do the splits and put her head over her leg, and she can like do the pancake, and I'm like, that's really great. But I know he loves you because your heart. And the first time that we ever grabbed coffee, I just like first off fell into the soul of your blue eyes.
Thank you.
But your heart is just so connected and so aligned with where we want to be and where we strive to be.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I'm excited to introduce you and give people a little taste of that on this beautiful Thursday.
Awesome.
Thanks for
I'm
being
excited.
here.
Yeah.
So to give you a little bit of a backstory on Jeannie, she can probably do that better than I can.
Oh,
but
I just love when you tell stories.
Don't
though.
you?
You do it so much better than I do.
It's not true. She has this concept of flow. That has really intrigued me since the moment I've met her, mainly because I love fitness and nutrition. If you haven't gathered that yet, it's definitely a part of this whole concept of alignment and balance and wholeness that I believe all of us need. But as getting to know her, I've realized that flow is way less about your body and way more about your life and your whole center. So I'd love for you to just share like how you got to that space, and then we'll kind of go into like what flow is.
Wow.
For people. It's
huge. I think flow found me really, and it was more, and I think it's been over the course of the last 17 years of my professional career, but then also how that bleeds into my personal life. So I think flow, I knew what flow was before I had a word for it. And it was the search for understanding more about our bodies and our minds and how everything connects and how do we optimize the function of those things so we can experience more of life. So it was just that I don't really know how to place like how I found flow or flow found me. I really do feel like it found me, and have been connected with a lot of experts that study flow states. Yeah. So it's such a powerful, it's just this powerful state of consciousness, an altered state of consciousness. And just a little bit about it, if people haven't experienced flow, it's just that moment where you're completely enraptured in whatever task is at hand. And for me, that just happens to be movement, which I call flow. Sure. Any kind of exercise, which I recently found out. I was out in California a couple months ago studying with Stephen Kotler and Jamie Wheel. Yeah. And I learned about more about what is this flow state and how do we access that and what does that really mean. And it was the first time I had really heard it put into words that a flow state is basically if you can access flow in various different ways, but one of the most common or easiest is exercise. So there's something called exercise-induced transient hypofrontality. Oh, wow. And basically what that means is like our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that gives us that self-consciousness and keeps track of time, all of that goes quiet. So when you access a flow state, you're really just lost in the moment and you lose all sense of yourself. Wow. And time seems to pass weirdly, and so it's just that it's an experience, and it's been through those flow state experiences where I've probably gleaned the most inspiration and clarity and just being hyper aware of my surroundings and the people in it. So it's just power, and I think that I feel like I'm just on this ferocious mission to get more people to be able to experience flow states, whatever that, whatever gives them that access more often, because that is when we're truly performing at our peak.
That's amazing. So beyond like the exercise component or movement, and was flow kind of your word, or was it in did you hear it from somewhere? Is it actually a part
word.
Of movement?
Yeah, flow is a word. I mean, it's interesting too, because the more aware I've become of flow, there's, when you listen to people talk, oftentimes if you're tuned into the word flow, you'll hear them talk about it, and it's almost always a positive there's almost always positive associations with it, which I love. Yeah. So it's not just about exercise, although I mean, yes, now of course, we have all these beautiful physical practices, and lots of them are flow, or flow based, where and in that sense, it's just where one movement would easily transition into the next and to the next and the next. So it's just this constant stream of energy, and when you can give your body that experience, that also crosses over to your brain and your nervous system and helps to wire that all in. So exercise is a powerful way to experience that.
Yeah, I feel like. And this is a big jump to the next part of the conversation, but I'm hearing you talk about it, and I'm thinking about on a terms for people who maybe don't have that body experience yet, or they've never been there. It kind of has that synonymous to a runner's high. Sure. Or if they've never experienced flow, which visually it's kind of like a vinyasa, yoga, gymnastics-based monkey-like movement.
Yeah, primal movement.
Very primal. Yeah,
sure.
Primal movement. Yeah. And yet, because of the flow component to it, it's so beautiful. It is definitely like a dance art. It's fluid, so beautiful. But where and how can we get that in our love life?
Absolutely.
In our relationships, in our home front, in our day-to-day routine. Yeah. Because if you said constant stream of energy,
And I just think how often, even in like, I could think of just my day today, we're on this like good movement and all of a sudden, boom, traffic light.
Right.
Or you're going, it's really, really great. And then boom, argument. Or what, boom, crying baby.
Right. Like
boom,
all of the
there's
above.
a torrential downpour. All my plans are ruined.
Yes.
So I want to be able to, I want personally, and I know Gary works on this constantly. How do you do that in your life, regardless of the roadblocks, to see past, to transcend beyond what's physically present with us, yet we know there's this access and that's a spiritual realm, obviously, that allows us to maintain this free flow state.
Right. Yeah. That's a big question.
I know.
I mean, I don't.
I
know
want
that
it. I want the answer. Jesus, come on, take the wheel.
Right. I mean, this is what I'm going for,
Yeah.
and it's. I think there's such a peace of mind in knowing that just you're training an awareness. So you're using, in this sense, you could be using exercise to train that mindset, to train the awareness, to train that like, oh, I hit a stoplight.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I keep from reacting to that?
Yeah.
You know, how do I stay calm and just know that whatever happens and you just roll with it. You flow with it.
You flow forward. Yeah.
Yes. So it's maintaining that state of consciousness no matter what. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it is when we're all able to kind of tune into what it is that gives us that access to flow, we can then use that as a tool to train ourselves, to train our nervous system, to train our brains, to train our bodies to be more level and to be able to manage our energy better.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. I'm thinking about how that point of that stoplight, and it could happen in so many different ways, like we said, but Gary always says, fail forward. And that's like what that flow that reminds me of. And not to mention, because I love alliteration. So flow is failing forward.
Yes.
And it's getting into that space of, okay, that didn't feel right from an exercise movement. But I know the next move, and that one I'm really comfortable with. So let me just work through this and get to that.
Absolutely.
Get back to that comfortability.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, like, how can we keep going? That's
right.
so
And you do hit hiccups. I mean, in any practice or activity, of course, we all come up against those roadblocks, or where you're not going to be able to move forward as fluidly as you have in maybe your mind or as you would like. But over time, things do get refined, and you do get better and more skilled at
everything.
Wisdom,
please. So listen
Why
to this.
couldn't we have that when we're like 20?
I know. Well, you know, there are always those conversations of, would you go back? Or if you could go back, what would you do different? And, you know, what do you regret most? And I really wouldn't want to go back.
No.
I want to infiltrate what I know you do, to my children.
Yes.
And I want them to do it differently and better and all of those things. But I'm like so at peace with where I am right now, but more at peace where I know God has me going.
Right. Yes.
That future mindset, which is essentially how I stay into that fluidity regardless of roadblocks. That would be my tangible, is that I'm not focused right here, right now, even though we're together. I'm thinking, how many people are going to hear this that are just going to be able to have access to something they never had before? And then what ripple effect is that going to make?
Yeah, right.
And
absolutely.
So it's just, it's about this moment. And we were just talking about that. What was the word that we were saying about being present with that person versus thinking about something else?
Right, just the compartmentalization.
Yes, compartmentalization. And how do we do that when this is on our schedule? We have 1,000 other things to do. I feel like compartmentalization plays such a avid component to flow.
Yes.
Because,
for sure.
You're trying to like move out of what stressors are happening in your life in order to move forward. But we have to like actually take the time out to do it.
Yes.
And somebody said the other day, and I loved it, rest is an action. People
so
always say, like, we're called, biblically speaking, to rest,
right?
To be still. But you can't just do that. You can't just turn everything off. The lights are off. Okay, let's be still.
Right?
I would sleep like an angel if that was possible. But I'm like making to-do lists and thinking about what happened and how I could change it or what happens tomorrow. And so it's an active pursuit to flow.
It's an intention.
Yeah, intention for sure.
Yes.
It's a good word for it.
And just knowing that every state we experience, when we make it more intentional or deliberate, it's concentrated. We'll get more out of it.
Yeah.
So it becomes more about quality than quantity.
So true. I love that. I take notes because
I love that. We're writing books too while we go.
Yeah, we are. The amount of information
true.
that comes out of these 45-minute sections, it's because of the intentionality. And it's so funny, prior to like us getting in front of each other, that the receiving person's always like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I say? What are we going to talk about? I don't know what to do. Do you have a timeline? And I'm like,
whatever comes up.
just be. Like, we're not actually having coffee because we really wouldn't sleep if that happened.
That's
at
true.
4 o'clock in the
It's too
evening.
late. Yeah.
We could have hot tea, but it's now getting hot outside, so we have massive bottles of water. We're
hydrating.
For the
this
day.
is productive.
Yes.
Right.
So earlier today, I got my toes done. That was
nice.
a place of flow, and I'm showing my toes on
How beautiful.
social media.
What a
I
treat.
chose like a bronze. Yeah. I knew I had to be intentional for me time today because the next 4 days, my children are out of school. And for all the mommies experiencing spring break right now,
It's going crazy.
I'm praying for you, okay? And I know what that looks like. And while I'm really excited to have off work and spend some quality time with them, at the same time, I'm like, okay, let me inhale because the next 4 days is going to be a big exhale. And so
it's a shifting of gears too.
Yeah,
Holy,
it is.
Yeah.
Everything changes. So I'm sitting there and I was on my phone, which I often preach not to do, but this was my time, my quiet time with my toes. And the guy who was doing my pedicure, he just continually kept like asking little questions. And I would answer,
Sure.
I would be intentional about my answer, and then I would go back on my phone. And finally he said, your mama looks so young, because he does my mom's pedicures. And I hadn't said anything about my mom, so I didn't put two and two together. And he said, I think it's because she comes and get pedicures. And I'm like, yeah, that could definitely be part of it. And he said, but she exercises. Do you exercise? I was like, I do exercise. So we go into this long conversation about how this guy who's in his upper 50s, who looks like he's Oriental, so their skin is just
beautiful.
Yeah, right. I don't have that, but he said, you look happy when I was talking about how young he looked. And I was like, you might see my crow's feet, but it's from smiling, I promise. And he was like, you look really happy. And he said, but we started talking about water intake and the food that he was eating and how all of his family members don't understand why he always looks the same, and they fluctuate weight and they fluctuate through life. And he said, you have to exercise. And that was the conversation before we even knew like what this was going to evolve into that I was having 2 hours ago. And so when we said like, what are we going to put our hearts on for this conversation, I just laughed out loud. I talk about God winks and how God that was a God wink. It was so good. I just laughed, but it made me so excited to like spend this time because it meant there was going to be something more of it out of it for me, but also for the people listening.
Yes. Right.
So question.
Yes.
I'm going to switch gears again. I like to do that. My mind is flowing, but it's also just like a million miles a minute.
Yeah.
Yes. Is how you said you had experienced flow and it developed and it found you over the past 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
What were
Actually, it's probably been more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like life.
Yes. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
it's probably been I think the first time I experienced flow, but before I had any language or knew what was going on or could understand it in any capacity, it was when I was with my dad. And he used to come home from work, and I think it was probably about 12 or 13 at the time.
Yeah.
He might remember better than I do. He would come home from work, and he worked in DC.
Okay.
We lived in Northern Virginia, and he worked in DC, and really, really stressful job. And he would come through the door at 5:30 every day, And I just didn't recognize him because he was so stressed out and just pent up emotion and oftentimes just really frustrated. And I'd say, Dad, you want to go for a run? And he'd be excited about that. He'd be like, let's go outside and go for a run around the block. And we would. And about 15 minutes into our run, everything shifted. Wow. His whole state of being shifted. And I was like, what is this stuff? Like, we're just jogging along. And all of a sudden he's like free and he's like a kid again. And he's got all this energy. And I think that's what really got me. I wasn't athletic as a kid. I didn't play any sports. I mean, I would play like flashlight tag with my brothers. And
wow, I didn't know that.
Play on the playground, but I never did anything organized.
Wow, I would never guess that.
Yes. And also that was also, I think, around the time when I was diagnosed with asthma, like exercise-induced asthma and allergic asthma when I was 4. Yeah. And that was a big problem back then for me because it meant that anytime I laughed, got my heart rate up, did anything physically active beyond what was just normal, it would induce an asthma attack.
That's
and
wild.
I would end up in the hospital and, shot up full of drugs, and I would be sick for days.
Holy cow.
So for me, when I finally reached that point where I was either growing out of it or it was just, who knows? I mean, you don't ever know really. But things started to change and it was under control and I was able to move again and play again. And it was just like, I have my life back and I can breathe again.
Wow. Especially as a kid to take that take from you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and then to be able to experience that, like the change in mentality of my dad and like watching that, it was really, I think that was a huge inspiration for me wanting to go to school and study this stuff and then beyond school, like certification after certification and training with some of the best minds in our country and like just wanting to learn, just a hunger for that. What is going on? Like this thing we're living in, it's amazing. How do we get it to work as best we can and what do we do with it? And so it's just that.
So cool. And I've also seen you, I mean, that's a perfect case scenario and a perfect example that would lead you into the whys behind what you do because it's not just the body component. Right. Because you love the mind. Like,
it's evolving for sure.
It is.
It started out as the exercise and the like physical component, but yes, I mean, I'm not even there anymore.
But like the way that, you have this life coaching component to your business.
Right.
And even when we would meet, I'm like, I feel like you were reading my mail all the time. And I'm like, why does she know what's happening in my life? And it was more just, you just ask questions and it's the way you engage with people. And I think you are really good at like putting flow into other people without even teaching them the movement piece.
Oh, I love that.
You are. You really are. And so I am like so excited to see that part of your business flourish because it's such a need. Like,
it's lifestyle coaching.
Get it.
Right. It's like, how do we get all these like really simple, seemingly insignificant parts of our days to be in alignment so that we can experience the best of ourselves and we can give the best of ourselves to other people. And that's it's not just about exercise. It's about food and music and who we're interacting with and what we're watching on TV or not watching on TV. What books are we reading? Like there's so many inputs that we get every day. And so I feel like to be able to really design an intentional life where each person gets to add the ingredients of into their lives that really fill them up and allow them to be in their power. Wow.
Yes.
That's just unlimited possibilities.
That's the biggest component right there too, is that like giving us the power, like taking the power back.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like the power has been released.
Yes.
To everyone and everything else in our worlds. And whether it's the greater world, because that's a huge component of it, or just your immediate like circle of influence, and I think that's the component of freedom that we want and need to experience even in our spirituality.
Right, for sure.
And that's what God, like literally God is in control.
Yeah.
God has all of these keys. And yet we're like, he's like dangling them in front of us. Like you're 16 and you just turned 16 and it's time for you to go drive. And everyone's just looking at the keys and nobody's grabbing them. Like, when does that happen?
Yes.
That never happens. You run towards the keys. It doesn't matter if it's a beat up clunk and you got a hole in one tire and you have to inflate it every week. You're so excited to get the keys to this component of freedom.
That's a great analogy.
Right?
Yes.
And yet we don't take advantage of it.
Right.
Like, if you could have any analogy to flow, like, God is flow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is his being. His being is free. His being is natural. His being is an ocean. It's
nature
waves.
is that way.
Yes. That's why we're called to be outside. It's incredible. I mean, literally,
yes.
we're going to go. So peace.
Okay.
We're going to after this, though. But that's such an aha moment that I feel like often the church is missing. The church isn't standing up and teaching that component of Christianity. They might teach grace. They might teach the wrongs versus the rights. But I don't feel like flow is a state of right versus wrong.
Sure.
It's the flow of peace. And it's knowing, you know what peace feels like. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what joy feels like. Yet we can't
Well, in a sense, all of those words could be used interchangeably too.
Oh, 1,000%.
And I think it's also just flow is just I don't even know. I think probably most people have experienced it, and maybe it's just not the word they use.
Sure.
And that's cool.
Sure.
I mean, like, it's all good, but it's natural.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, Morgan just recently did a video for the women's retreat that you're going to help essentially put on the entire thing in October. I'm so excited about it.
That's going to be so much fun.
It's so fun. We should talk about it in a minute. So she created a video for it, and it's talking about how women don't take the time out for themselves. Men don't either, but we're geared towards women at this point in our ministries. And it has this girl, and she's like wrapped up in a blanket walking next to the ocean, and she just looks so like restricted. And yet she's in a space that's supposed to be this like open,
expansive,
like just a freedom place. And then she starts talking about what the retreat is going to do to give people that space to relax, to rest, to rejuvenate, to connect, to explore this concept of flow in a place that we're meant to be, which is outdoors by the ocean.
Right.
Like, just being next to the ocean is a freedom space, because you realize how tiny you are in comparison to the universe. So it switches gears in sound, but then it switches gears. This girl is now in this like free-flowing dress, and she's just like dancing in the sunlight and in the sunset. And there could have been no words to the video, and yet I'm watching it, and I just had this surge of, I cannot wait to watch these women transform in the 3 days that we're with them.
Oh my gosh. And with everything integrated the way it is,
Yeah.
That's what's so powerful is the environment, the people, everything lines up, the activities, and it's going to happen. It's guaranteed.
So good. I'm just so excited because we don't take the time out. Like, we don't sit down and say, okay, what makes me passionate?
Right.
What is a space of flow that I sometimes get into? What makes me just really at peace? Because we think as a culture, it's about busy. It's about schedule. We jam pack everything every single day. When in there is there freedom to just be, and to actively rest, and to actively be still.
It requires a slowing down.
Yeah. And that's what the retreat will do.
And then knowing how to take that back and infuse every day with that.
Yes.
And I think that's the piece that has been missing for so long, is not only were we educated and trained in a totally different way that doesn't fit our world anymore, but now we've got all of that ingrained in us. Like, those are the connections our brain made. And so it's in a sense a repatterning where we have to teach ourselves and allow for something different.
Yeah, something different for sure, because it's definitely, there's no book about it yet.
No.
There's no like explanation for it. And that's why I think when the Bible asks us to speak our testimonies, there's so much importance to that. And it doesn't have to be on a podcast. It doesn't have to be like on a stage or out loud. It's literally from one heart to another in an intimate experience that allows people a space to actually comprehend, even just in that moment, what it feels like to be free, because you now have unlocked a component of your heart or your being that was probably tragic, probably was traumatic, was probably painful or hurt and grieving, because we've all experienced those things.
Yes.
And yet we're still living. So what state are you living in? Are you living being controlled by the grief and the pain and the trauma? Or are you living with a perpetual desire to experience flow?
Yes. Right.
And maybe it's simultaneous.
Sure.
I feel like I have grieving components of my life this moment.
We all do.
Right.
Yeah. That's completely normal.
Right. I just don't want, and I don't allow it to hinder me from even an experience like this.
Yes.
Right. There's the compartmentalization piece.
Right. And to know that, what we focus on is what expands.
Yes.
So to have that ability to be discerning in every moment, or as many moments as possible, of like, okay, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Who am I with? And is this getting me closer to where I really want to be?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, well, that just unleashes a whole nother set of questions.
Right. Absolutely. And also, if you can remove that from your schedule, now then, what are you replacing it with?
What are we putting in now?
Right.
Yes.
And so I loved when you were talking about all of the things that fuel us, that from the music to the food that we're eating to all of those things. I literally had to detox, and that's a part of this 3-day time frame. And don't worry, there's gonna be food. That's been the biggest question.
Well, I wouldn't be there if there was not food.
Yeah, exactly. Jeannie, I have cookies waiting for me on the other side of this video screen. But it's not intended, when I say detox, for you to rid yourself of everything. First off, that's not healthy.
Sure.
And second off, we want you to be able to have resources that when you go back to real life, that is all the crazy, all the busy, how can you integrate this component? But we are going to detox from what the world constantly has coming at us 24/7.
I think that's really important, because without the contrast that affords, there is no clarity.
Yeah. It's so true. And we just don't allow ourselves to do
Yes.
it. So when I was going through my season of stripping all of these things away, music was a really big one of those. And I talked about that last episode, about how I used to love country music and it was all I would listen to. And I thought, this is really wholesome. And then you really listen to the words.
Right.
And it's not so wholesome. Another component was food. My husband, who you knew, because you got a hold of him before.
That's how we talked about. Yeah.
Yes. And so
around
he introduced intermittent fasting before it was a tagged thing. He introduced me to paleo, whether I wanted to or not, because he's the cook in the household, which is amazing. Find a man who can cook. But then it slowly just kept overflowing into me, which
I love that.
Is so interesting. And I didn't intend to think of the flowing component until I said it. But really just the overflow of somebody else who is in a flow state.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
That's why people glean from people who love Jesus.
Right.
And who are exuding him. It's not a matter of us talking and bantering like Exodus 4:7. Don't read that because I have no idea what it is. I don't know where that came from. I have to read it now.
Now we need to look
or
that up.
any of the biblical scripture we could say out loud, and it's Easter weekend, and it's going to be everywhere. So how are people receiving it? Are they receiving it from a place of this is a stoplight for them because of something happened in their past? Or is it a green light that is coming out of an expression of flow?
Yeah.
It's overflow of our heart state, because we're free.
Right.
Because we're saved. Because we're whole.
Yes.
And not because we're not experiencing imperfection or experiencing, just like we said, those components of things that God bared and Jesus bore on the cross? Bared on the cross?
Bear on the cross? I don't know.
Wore on the cross. Jesus wore on the cross. That's what I'm going to say. And we all experience that. But at the very same time, we get to experience the resurrection components of our lives.
Yes.
And flow, if you think about it, is a resurrection state.
Yeah, I mean, it's both. It's, you can't get to flow without the struggle.
Yeah.
And the surrender. So it's, that's interesting to think about it in those terms.
Yeah. That should be your post on Easter Sunday. Flow is resurrection. Resurrection is flow.
You're going to write that.
I am. It's so good. I just love it. But it is, I love that concept. You said the word surrender. And we are so bent up with control from the smallest age. I watch it literally with my children who are 4 and 5.
Yes.
The things that they want control of, the things that they need control of to maintain consistency. And yet we need to release that.
Yes. Well, I mean, it comes by us naturally, right?
Sure.
Like it comes out of a fear and a desire for certainty, which we all know is not, there are very few things that are certain.
Exactly.
Right. So it's that, wanting to cling to something and just attach to. It's really good. So I think it's just, and that's where the ability to discern comes in too. It's like, okay, do I need to create this? Do I need to control this? Or do I need to let this go and just let it be?
That's true. It's interesting. My son and daughter, actually, which is very rare, they've gotten a couple of reports this week from their teachers that they just weren't fully listening, not really themselves. Cooper's always a wild hair. You never know what's going to come out of that child. But when it's from my daughter, who I don't ever have those experiences, I'm like, that's very strange. So fast forward to 2 days later, I'm sitting across the couch from my lovely therapist, fully well practitioner. She's incredible. You have to check her out. I'll tag her here if you're local. But I'm sitting there and I'm telling her, she's like, how are you feeling? Like doing the therapist thing.
Right, check in.
Yeah, just we usually don't even talk about anything that has any depth until like 15 minutes in, because it's just that
it takes that
lighthearted because that's what we're used to as a society, really.
Yes.
Not because I don't want to go there. I have a wall.
Right.
I have to break down the wall, and then I'm like, hello, hello, friend. What do you want to tell me today? So I was in that moment, and she said, it sounds like you guys are really like extra busy. You're always busy. That's like part of your life and your nature and all the things that you guys do, but something seems off. What is it? So that's interesting that you asked that. I really have been trying to figure it out because something about me has felt really claustrophobic in the last 2 weeks, to the point where I felt like I was creating my own sense of like a jail almost around me, and I couldn't figure out what it was, because I wasn't doing anything on a day-to-day basis within my schedule different than what I was the whole 4 months prior, where I was in this free flow, like go state. It was just so good. And I just felt exhausted. I was going to bed earlier. I was still working out. So it wasn't the exercise that was missing. I was still eating, drinking. All the things are the same.
All the things.
All the things. And I said, well, we are in the process of moving.
Right.
And the place that I always went to for rest, that my children always come to for rest, even if we're doing something, has been so discombobulated. We've got half of the stuff is in boxes. My daughter's mattress is on the floor because she's going out of her baby crib and into a big girl bed into our new home. All of the pictures have been off the wall for the last week and a half. We're living kind of out of boxes, but kind of not. Their toys aren't all there. The couches are moved. There's a lot of transition happening. And I could not put words to it until we started talking about it.
Isn't that wild?
And so I went back and talked to the teacher later, and she said, because she had asked me, is something going on different at home? And I'm like, no, everything's good. I don't understand. I'll talk to him. It'll be good. Like, this just must be a thing. He's sleeping fine. He's not sick. And I said, you know what? I actually owe you kind of an apology, because I realized there was something huge going on. And this is exactly why I feel like I'm in a jail and he is acting out, or she is acting out. And so often I think we don't intentionally even analyze, especially for those little beings, things that are happening at such supersonic speed, and they're just the next thing on the schedule, the next thing to do, really affects them.
Yeah, we're like little animals.
Yes.
Yes. And think of that, like the upset in just their normal day-to-day environment.
Yeah.
And then they pick up, we all pick up each other's energy, whether we want to admit that or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where it's any little thing can upset the
Yeah. It's really interesting. So I'm now like, how do I fix this? So I still have 2 weeks before I officially move,
Breathe.
and I don't want my babies to be like all unflow state. So it was a really interesting revelation that it was yesterday afternoon. So like last night, I was like really intentional when they came home from jujitsu, and I'm like, okay, we're going to just be in a space, all of us together. We're going to make popcorn. We're going to kind of just play on the bed and watch a movie. And we turned off the lights low and just snuggled. And so I was trying to like just create this like bubble.
Yes.
Even though everything in the room was chaotic, create this bubble of just like love and comfort. And they had a great day today. And it just made me realize, like, why can't we do that more often? Why is there not a moment in our schedule that allows us a chance to flow? Mm-hmm. And that was flow. Yes. Whether I wasn't actively moving, I was tickling and hugging and snuggling.
You're embodying something. You're embodying a feeling that you want for yourself and for other people. And I think that's such a big part of everything.
Yeah. It's hard to do.
I know.
I need more of it.
Me too.
So thinking about...
That's what makes it fun.
I know.
Every day is an opportunity to practice.
Yes. Get better, get better, get better. So I'm just thinking about a girlfriend of mine who I just spoke about, but I won't call her out. She's going to be listening to this next episode, and she's probably going to be walking her dog around the neighborhood without kids, without her husband, experiencing a beautiful sunset. And I want you to share with her like some takeaway tips on like what can she do if you were sitting eye to eye with her right now to get into a place of flow.
Ooh, what would I say?
Or what would you suggest?
Slow down.
Yeah.
Just slow down.
Yeah.
I think that's been the biggest thing for me is learning that. Yeah. And I'm still going too fast. But slowing down helps a ton.
Yeah.
Giving yourself space to just think and feel and be present.
Yeah.
Because I think it's not so much of a struggle when it does come more effortlessly when we're just there and present and let the divine work for us.
Yeah.
So it's,
I love that. I love let the divine work.
It's a partnership. I feel like being outside, taking a walk with the dog without husband and kid, that's already right there. That's space. And yes.
Yeah. That's really
and knowing that it's not so much of I got to do this, I got to do that, all these to-dos and I, all these things that we're told we're supposed to do to be optimized and better performers and better people. And I really think it's just the flip of completely flipping that concept and looking at, okay, what would bring me more joy and delight in this day, in this moment? Like really looking at life from that perspective, everything else takes care of itself. Yeah. Because naturally we're going to want to take care of ourselves and be with the people that fill us up and support us and love us. And so I think it's just, so much, at least for me personally, I just made it too difficult for so long and still fall into that trap. Yeah. Whereas if we could just kind of let it all go and move through it.
Yeah. I love that.
And everything else
not
flows.
The to-dos. It's
not
the undos.
Right.
How can you undo?
Yeah. Take stuff out.
Yeah.
Right? Just keep the essential ingredients.
Yeah. It's really good. Back to your cooking.
I know. I can't help that. It's everything's so food terms.
Yes, it's so good.
It's making me hungry.
I'm so happy that you came. I hope that I don't even know what the time variation is. No clue. We're just hanging out over here. Oh, yeah. We're doing good. We can still talk if you want.
What do you want to talk about now?
I want to know.
First off, if we had some questions, right?
I know, to hear what they're thinking on the other end. That'd be fun. But I think I have another question is you're working into another state of flow, I feel like there's different levels of flow. I feel like there's different levels, just like I feel like in our spirituality, there's different levels of access. And since learning all the things that you've learned, you're now almost in this transitional season to go into this new state of flow as a new being. What does that look like for you? Where?
I can't wait to see. Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to see. It looks like ease.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It feels like ease.
I love that.
And it looks like a lot more beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being outside more and...
Yeah. I mean, everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just outside, but...
I love that.
Bringing the natural beauty inside, maybe. I don't know. Just environments.
It's really cool.
Really cool people. And lots more learning. I
think we all need that.
Yes.
I think that's a place of flow in and of itself. I think so often, you know, we've talked about exercise. We've talked about spirituality. We've talked about our home life, our relationships, even our love life. I mean, Lord, that's a whole unpacking conversation in and of itself, because being intentional in that,
right,
allowing the divine to work in that,
yes,
and giving up control in that,
yes,
that's hard.
Well, any relationship, but and yes, especially romantic relationships, intimate relationships.
Totally.
You know, like you and I have a certain level of intimacy.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. And we don't live with each other.
Right.
Like, so it's a completely different setup.
It is.
But I also think that if we're as individuals, if we don't have the ability to manage ourselves and really be the people that we want to be, then it makes all the relationships so much harder.
So true.
So
it's so true. And that's where that component of self-identity comes into play.
Sure.
And knowing yourself enough to know when you're in a flow state and when you're not in a flow state. Be like, babe, not flowing right now, or I'm flowing, so don't touch me. That's a that's a female joke. I'm not supposed to hit the table. I hope you heard the drum.
You told me not to, and then you get
such
to do
a moment. It was
these rules. These rules.
But I mean, that's so true. I mean, I don't think, because the control piece is such an important part, because we're trying to make sure we're heard, or trying to make sure that what we feel is expressed and what we feel resonates with the other person, and while managing all of these crazy states of our own day to day, and also experiencing it with somebody else. How do they feel? What is going on in their flow state? How can I help them in their flow state? That's talk about
compassion,
right?
Oh
my gosh,
like that's compassion times 100.
Yeah. And empathy and
and all the things.
All of that. And love. I mean, because
Yes.
if you're really going to be in a relationship of any sort, I'm thinking about my children in this moment, that motherhood piece. Think about all the control that we have to release in order for us to mother.
Right. Isn't that horrible?
Yes.
And look, I think about that. Like, my kids are 15 and 17 now.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, if I had known everything that I know now when my kids were your kids' age. And that's the cool thing about evolution, and and this is what makes conversation so important.
Yeah.
Like having these real conversations and taking time for that, because this is the only way that we get better as humans.
As a humanity.
And our communities need to be strengthened, and
It's so true. It's so true. I'm excited. I want to go flow outside right now.
You want to go play?
I do. I want to go play. I love it. It's so fun because you can play.
That's what it's all
matter
about.
How old
it
you
doesn't
are.
have to be. Yeah, and that's what it's all about.
Go play.
It's just playing.
It is. And that's like the synonymous word to flow, beyond all of the other words that we talked about that have that similar experience, like playing at the core of what flow is.
Being willing to explore.
Yeah.
Explore more of everything.
Yes.
And discover. That's why kids are so blissed out all the time.
Absolutely.
They spend their whole day doing that.
Right. Well, and that goes back to what I was going to say originally after the relationship component, was that state of flow when you're learning.
Yes.
And so it's so essential, and that's why children are constantly sponges and constantly thriving, because they're so curious. And they're so receiving.
Yeah.
And so if I feel that way when I'm even listening to a podcast or reading a new book or even watching a movie or a documentary, I'm like so a sponge, and I'm so present, but yet I can't do it in other components always.
Yes.
So it's staying in learning phase, learning mode all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to say it, because it requires an openness.
Yeah.
And a willingness to not know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, control. We have a problem as a society, and you cannot ever know it all.
No.
But we have a society of know-it-alls. Do we not?
That's true.
It was
For the most
interesting.
part,
I was
yes.
at a conference last week, and they were talking about the difference between baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Z. And we were doing it from a component of marketing,
Okay.
which was just brilliant.
Oh, I
it
bet.
was so fun
I bet.
to listen to, and then pinpoint exactly the generations because all of them are represented in the room. So everyone's in uproar of laughter, whether they're the receiving end of the joke or they're joking someone else.
That's bold.
It was so good, but really the millennials, they're just like we're pinpointed as know-it-alls and that control piece, but really it's the opposite, that we're willing to give up the control to the community, to the whole, and it's the Gen Xers right before us who are the ones who are like, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna do it all better than the baby boomers, and yet they want their own entity of that, which I thought was just really interesting. And it's just the way that it's marketed and pushed from the adult perspective of who we are.
Sure, and then how that's shaping everybody's perception.
Yes, perception.
Wow,
of
that would have been
flow.
a really good.
Yes. That's the next one. So tune in next time with Jeannie Chamberlin Landis. I can never say your name fully.
It's a mouthful.
For the perception of flow. I'm taking
Oh,
notes.
that's good. Yes.
Right? Because I see you, and I know that there's also times that you're not experiencing flow.
Yeah.
Or someone, the word I cannot stand, oh, she's perfect. Oh, her life is perfect. And that is a falsehood of flow.
Yes.
Because it doesn't exist.
And it can be very messy.
Yes.
Yes.
So don't let your
That's what makes
Instagram
it
highlight reel let you think that someone's flowing over there. I should rap right now. That's what I feel.
I'm open to that.
I don't think I can. But if you're in my household
said
right
it.
now, I did. It's in my spirit. If my 5-year-old is here, I might do it. We rap a lot in my household.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. So
Gary's going to listen, right?
Oh, yeah.
I need to make sure that he records some of that for me, and I'm going to expect.
He's raps.
I'm going to expect, what?
Gary's the rapper. He's the whole one that started it. I'm a poetic person. He is a rapper because that's what he listened to.
You guys have been holding back.
I know.
Huh.
That's why Coop is just like so like rap. It's all Gary and me. We just don't let anyone see
It's
it.
in the bones. Yes.
It's so good. I'm
Good. I'm gonna take that on as a challenge.
Yeah,
Then.
I'm gonna,
I'm
like,
gonna expect
beatbox.
like a video a week. I think.
Deal.
Yeah.
Okay, it's coming at you. Flow with the Andresses. I like it. It's a whole segment series. All right, girlfriend. I love you.
I love you
so much.
Thank you for this. This is fun.
It's been really fun. I hope people leave this conversation and they go out and play.
Yes.
More than anything.
Me too.
Just release
too.
it all, release the control, and go play.
Be open.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm Tamara Andress. I'm your Fit and Faith host, and I am so excited to just be here to share with you other movers, dreamers, shakers, entrepreneurs, pastors, whatever. If you've got a head and you've got a heart, I'm so excited to explore who that is, whose you are, and discover your wholeness, your health, your wealth, and your joy. I love to exude happiness. I want people to know that this is not, this came with trial. You guys, this came with a lot of effort. This came with a lot of lows and so many highs. And I want us to experience those together. This is a real community of dreamers, and I'm excited to help catapult your calling, your kingdom experience, the purpose of your imprint on the world, wherever, however that is. So come along for the ride. I'm excited to chat with you. Like, comment, review, send me a DM, send me an email. It's me responding, even though I have an incredible team. And so I'm just excited to get to know you. Let's connect, let's create community, and let's walk in our calling.